Stacy wanted to talk about the 2023 MLB draft. It is over. The Yankees making, of course, 20 selections this year, and they were a little backloaded this season because of the Rodon signing. They had to forfeit some earlier round draft picks. If you're on the YouTube side, you're seeing a list of all the draft picks now. And I just kind of wanted to break down what we saw. Of course, we talked about Geeorge Lombard Jr., who was the first rounder, 26th overall on day one out of Gulliver Prep High School. Listed as a shortstop, might become an outfielder or a third baseman at some point. Big kid, not a massive arm, but a big kid with a power bat. And that's kind of where I wanted to start, Stacy. Not, of course, just with Geeorge Lombard, but the Yankees over the last few years, and we've seen it with their philosophy in acquiring major league talent, minor league talent, and of course their draft picks, they're going after big bats. That is a organizational philosophy, is to play big. Look at Aaron Judge. So that continued here throughout this draft. Geeorge Lombard Jr., the first of it. There was a couple other guys I wanted to talk about here today. Obviously, I'm not going to go through all 20 picks. You can find that on like Pinstripe Prospects. They do incredible work, by the way, and have been on the show before as well. But just some stats through it, Stacy. The Yankees made one catcher selection, 3 infielders, 3 outfielders, right-handed heavy, 8 right-handed pitchers, 2 lefties, and 1 two-way player. I'm going to talk about him in a second. The Yankees also went very college heavy. Pardon me, I said 20 picks. They made 18 picks, 20 rounds. In their 18 picks, 14 of them were either JUCO, fourth-year juniors, or fourth-year seniors. Last year, I mentioned a lot of pitching drafts, like 10 of them. So half of the draft, the Yankees selected pitchers. And last year was 15. The year before that in 2021 was 13 of their 20 picks. So they've been pitching heavy, which kind of is showing. We've talked about some of the incredible starters the Yankees have in the system right now, the ones that they had to give up last year. So they've been very pitching focused as far as that. But when they go after bats, they go after big dudes. I wanted to talk about a couple of guys, as I mentioned. Let's talk about that two-way player. So Josh Tiedemann, a high school kid, from Hamilton High School in Arizona. He was the 13th round pick, 402nd overall. He is a right-hander and a third baseman, also committed to TCU, which, of course, is a great program, a massive baseball program. So when you look at a high school draft pick in the 13th round, it becomes a question of signability. And I think this is one of the more interesting cases for the Yankees when we talk about signability, especially because of that TCU commit, 1. But 2, the two-way player aspect of it. Are the Yankees interested in continuing that? Because by all accounts, he hits pretty well, and he's got a pretty decent fastball already, out of high school. So you're going, well, can the Yankees go, we're going to let you do that? And that's not something the Yankees have dove too far into. They dabbled in it last season with Ronald Guzman at the AAA level. He pitched at the end of the season in quite literally the very last game of the season. Is obviously a first baseman. He's now in the Giants organization, last I checked. And I believe the Giants were allowing him to continue to do the two-way stuff. So I don't know if the Yankees as an organization are willing to do that. Obviously, they were willing to draft this kid. But is TCU going to allow him to do that? Which would obviously seem more likely than, you see some two-way players in college. But would the Yankees be able to sweeten the pot, A, in that regard, and B, are they going to be able to give him enough money? Are they being willing to give him enough money? So that's kind of one of the weirder ones. I'm curious to see what the Yankees end up doing. I also wanted to talk about the Yankees' third selection in the 4th round, 129th overall, Rock Riggio, out of Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, obviously, great baseball program. But Rock Riggio, I've actually seen in person on a couple of occasions here in Southern California. Went to Thousand Oaks High School, played with Max Muncy. No, not that Max Muncy, the other Max Muncy. Won a 2021 Division II title in high school, and also had some pretty big hits in the College World Series, like Super Regionals and stuff like that, with Oklahoma State. Rock Riggio, was a big name around these parts when it came to high school baseball here in Southern California. He was always front and center of that Thousand Oaks team, alongside Max Muncy, who are obviously both have been drafted. Riggio is a smaller guy. He's 5'9", but he plays with this absolute fire. From the very first time I saw him, and he's a guy that's screaming and yelling back at the dugout and throwing his helmet and, fired up, bat flipping, that type. He's like a absolute fire starter. And I think that is a really interesting prospect for the Yankees. They don't have a ton of that, especially at the major league level. It's not a true organizational philosophy when we talk about organizational philosophies. So I like this pick. What I'm saying is I really like this pick, especially to get him in the 4th round, not have to use one of your top 2. Obviously, we mentioned that the Yankees had to slide down a little bit because of the Rodon signing. So I do like Rock Riggio a lot. And I have liked him for a while now. He's got a great bat. He's got great energy. And I really like this kid. And the other one I wanted to talk about, one other one, Stacey, before I kind of round this whole thing up. Kyle Carr, he was the 2nd pick the Yankees had. 3rd rounder, 97th overall, from also here in California, from Palomar Junior College. He's a left-handed pitcher. We mentioned the Yankees only selected 2 lefties, which is kind of strange considering they need some left-handed pitching in the system. So they only went with 2 lefties. But Kyle Carr is a guy that's already had Tommy John, but has come back from Tommy John and is up to 97. So extremely interesting. He was one of the top JUCO pitchers, and to see the Yankees pick up a guy like this, a flamethrower, which I'm not going to say they have a ton of, especially at the higher levels. That's just from personal experience. I haven't seen a lot of the lower level guys like Tampa and stuff, and some of the Hudson guys. But yeah, it's interesting to me that they go with the JUCO guy, which obviously you pick wherever they are, you take them. But to see a JUCO kid, 97 lefty, post Tommy John and post some other surgeries as well, is extremely intriguing to me. So I'm keeping my eye on Kyle Carr, see where he ends up. I imagine he goes just a complex league, just like a lot of these guys will end up going to, and see what happens to them after the fact. But we're anticipating seeing guys like this starting to really creep into the conversation come 2026 or so. It takes about 3 years before you figure out where they land in the organization and what their upside is. The Yankees have a lot of reliever potential. They didn't pick up a ton of bona fide starters, I think, because Kyle Carr projects likely to be a high, big arm reliever, which is great. Maybe a potential closer type guy. But yeah, they didn't go after a ton of bona fide starters, because you look with their first, 5 picks, 3 of them are infielders, and then 1 of them you're already earmarking for the pen. So by the time you get down, you're running out of bona fide starters. So that's the one thing I definitely noticed. And again, they went very college heavy. So, take for that what you will. But that's just kind of the overall thoughts. Again, I thought they would go after a few more left-handers, which they did not. But the bats that they did get appear to be power bats, which is in line with the Yankees philosophy. But let us know how you're feeling about the Yankees draft. If there were some names in here that you're really interested in. Of course, I laid out a couple of the ones that stuck out to me, and it all boils down to whether they sign or not. So that's going to come up here in the coming weeks, whether these guys actually end up signing, going back to school, or in the case of some of the high school kids, taking their college commitments. So let us know how you're feeling about that down below here on the YouTube comments.